Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I'm your host today, Sam Williams, and I'm joined by Cal Wing.
Hello.
And Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Hello.
Guys, thanks for all your listens and all your comments. Don't forget you can get in touch with us on @CookieJarGolf, and that's on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Now, today we've got a really exciting episode. We were lucky enough to catch up with Richie Ramsay to hear about his career, and Richie's played on European Tour now for 12, 13 years, but also before that he's got a really glittering amateur career, and we really enjoyed hearing about some of those stories as well. Richie was the first person to win the US Amateur from Scotland in over a century. You've got to go all the way back to 1898 when Finley Douglas won that, and it puts him on a trophy with some of the game's greatest players, people like Francis Ouimet, C.B. McDonald, Bobby Jones, Tiger, Jack, Arnie, you name it, and it's a real moment in history. He's played Walker Cup golf. He turned professional back end of 2007 and has enjoyed, kind of several wins on tour, winning 3 times in Morocco. He's won the South African Open and he's won the European Masters. What was really interesting in this pod, and we hope you guys enjoy it, is hearing about kind of Richie's passion and dedication to the sport, and also his mental fortitude in terms of dealing with setbacks and challenges and how he stays present in the moment throughout some of those tournaments. It's a really cool listen, and without further ado, over to the pod. Hope you guys enjoy.
Watch this.
So, Richie Ramsay, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
How you doing? How's life in lockdown, first and foremost?
It's fine. It's fine. I kind of just trying to make the best of it. I think you spend a lot of time when you're a golfer. You spend a lot of time away from your family and away from home. So, if there's one profession there where you could see an advantage of it, it's probably in golf. Being at home, spending time with the family, almost readdressing that balance between work and life. Unfortunately, I don't get to see my friends, but spend time with my daughter is brilliant. Seeing her grow every day and trying to learn stuff with her, and just go out and play with her. Go on walks and just discover a bit more about her because you're away so much.
Yeah, we've kind of, most of the people we've talked to through lockdown all said the same, and it's the same, whatever your job, right? It's just, I think people find a very different way of kind of almost sort of, just operating. Everything seems a little slower, people enjoying a lot more time with family, and I think that's all kind of really healthy. We always like to kind of kick things off, Richie, just by understanding people's route into the game and where it all started first, and I presume there's quite a heavy amount of golf played in your junior years and around Scotland. Would you mind kind of telling us a bit about how you got into the game?
Yeah, so when I was younger, probably 3 or 4, I was probably, I say like most kids, but I had the plastic golf clubs in the back garden, hitting a ball around, and that was just an activity for me. It was another sport. I played numerous sports when I was younger, and the older I got, the more football was the sport that I wanted to play. And my grandfather was the person who would take me out. I would go to the 9-holer at Hazelhead, which is in Aberdeen, just public 9-holer, and go and play there with him on the odd weekend. And then I started getting a bit older and started to realise that football, there was no future in it for me. And then you start to maybe practice a little bit more at the golf, and you win a few handicap competitions, and you're like, oh, my handicap's coming down. This is quite nice. I get some trophies at the end of the year at the prize giving, and you start applying yourself, and then it keeps going from there. And my grandfather was always the one who was behind that. He was the driving force. He would take me out and go and practice, and he would cut down clubs and wrap tape around them. And he was always the one that talked about it and would take me up. So that was he was the main person, and he's the reason why pretty much I've accomplished what I've accomplished to this day. So, I went from Hazelhead, started getting my handicap down, joined Royal Aberdeen at 15, which was first time I'd been a member of a private club after playing a public course, and Hazelhead was a great public course built by Alistair McKenzie, the number one course. I loved it, but I needed to play more, especially during the winter when it was on winter greens in Hazelhead, and Royal Aberdeen was the best step, and it was an education. It was like, playing Hazelhead got to the point where it was quite easy. Starting to play Royal Aberdeen, I was like, I'm going to need way more shots. Way more shots. There's a lot of tee shots there can fill you with fear.
Absolutely.
And that was just an education. And because of that education, my golf game started to move pretty quickly in the right direction. Got my handicap down, and then it was a case of really, I remember getting my first letter from when I was about 15, because it was letters back then. It wasn't emails or anything like that. So, and it was like everybody knew it was coming. You got a team picked from your first letter, and you see you looked, it's like, remember, it was like Stephen Brown, Stephen Buckley, Scott Jameson, George Murray, those guys, and my name was in there. So that was the first time I got selected for Scotland, and it was it was like butterflies in your stomach when you're opening that letter and you get the call, and then you start playing. And then I was fortunate to go under 18, under 21 men's team in 2004. I played for Europe down in New Zealand with a unbelievable team we had that year. It was like Rory McIlroy, Hughes Luton, Julian Guerrier, a ton of brilliant players, and then played Walker Cup in 2005, and then through those last few periods, I had a stint in America for a year, and I've had 4 years at university, which was some of the best times of my life at university. They were just incredible.
It's amazing, isn't it? And hearing you talk it through that, it's like you go from 15 joining Royal Aberdeen to next thing you know in the story, we're kind of Walker Cup 2005. You're like, whoa, hang on. So, where along that kind of like timeline, if you will, did the sort of penny drop and thought, do you know what? There's definitely a living in this. Like I'm good enough to do this with the world's best.
I would say the first time was when I was 15. I'm good friends with him now. He doesn't play, but he played on tour, George Money. So I played, I think I was just turned 15. I played under 16s. Maybe I was 14. Under 16s. It was called the Douglas Gillespie under 16s. It was like a major. It's like the Masters for a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And playing at London Links. And it was the first time that I'd played in a national competition, and I kind of felt the nerves a bit, but I ended up finishing second, and I kind of walked away from there. And you might hear it a lot of the time from certain professionals, is that sometimes there's times in your life where you're actually better not winning. You'll learn more by, I wouldn't say losing, but coming close to something. And I learned way more that week than by winning it. I realized that I could win a national title, but it take perseverance and take dedication to apply myself, because I didn't feel like I played my best. I still felt there was a lot more in the tank. And then I went on, and I didn't win it the next year, but I became one of the best under 16s. And then from then on, it was like a competition. It was like, I've got to get better. Like, I don't like people, it was like when you go from 16 to under 18s, and it's like, oh, I need to move up the ladder quicker. How do I get better and compete with these guys who, when you move from under 16 to under 18, that's quite a big leap, because it's a big time where you're developing physically. And I just managed to bridge those gaps by just working hard, finding people that were good around me that helped me, and applying myself. And I think probably also enjoying the competition. Like, I love the competition element of it. Like, if someone says, "Oh, you can't do that," I'm like, "No, I'll find a way to do it." And that I've always had that. I think people around me call it stubbornness, or sort of self will to go out and try to accomplish something.
But it's the common denominator, isn't it, across all great athletes? As you say, it's that stubbornness and that grit. Talking there about going to the University of Stirling and your 4 years there. Am I right in thinking prior to that you went to the States on a scholarship? Was that quite a big experience for you and kind of open your eyes to how they do things across in the States and what the sort of standard of high level amateur golf would be like as you were kind of going up those age groups?
Yeah, I was at the end of school. I had options to probably stay in Scotland, but just like when you're 18, you want to go out and see the world, and it's like, you know what, I thought to myself, this may not work out, because I'm quite good at planning things out. So I was like, it may not work out, but I want to go and try it. I want to sort of tick it off the box. And I went out there. I was only a junior college, and I'm not from a background where I could afford to go to a D1 school unless I had everything paid for me. And I wasn't going to ask my parents to stump up that money, knowing in my mind that I might only be there for a year. So it was a good way of experimenting and seeing what was out there. And also, like, growing up in your mind, growing up to, going to a different country. I didn't know anybody, different way of life. And then trying to compete with some of the best golfers out there. But I got there and it just wasn't for me. It didn't suit me. I couldn't do what I wanted to do, which was, I wanted to be against the best, and I was the number one player on my team, but that didn't bother me. Like, I wanted to be the number one player in the nation, not the number one player in the team, because I knew, like, down the line that was going to hurt me. Because just like I talked about, when you move from under 16 to under 18, you play with better players, so you get better yourself. And I wasn't playing with better players. I was playing with the best players in community college, and with all due respect to them, that wasn't the guys that were going to make it. The guys that were going to make it were all in D1 schools. And that's when I took the decision, speaking to my parents, speaking to my coach, that I would come back and I would go to Stirling, and my goal was to rebuild my swing so that when I turned pro, ideally when I finished university and had a degree behind me, that I would have all the skills and the best chance to make it as a professional. Because I knew that in Stirling I had all the resources. The key element was hard work and discipline. And I was like, I can do that all day. As long as you give me the resources, I'll go out and I'll, like, knock the wall down for you. Don't worry about that. I was like, if you need someone to apply themselves, I'm your man. Just if you can help me out with things like expenses or things like, just having a gym. You give me a gym, a range, a place where I can practice my putting. Like,
see you in 10 hours.
I'll do that.
That's great. You mentioned your coach there. Is that Ian Ray, who's I think he still is the Scottish national coach? And it's a great story, because I understand that you're still working with him now, 20 years later, and it's a story that's actually not that common, it seems, with professional golf. There's so many guys who kind of go from swing coach to swing coach week in, week out. It seems like he's been a very important influence on your development as a player, and kind of allowing you to developing that relationship of trust has been a key part of your success and continued success on the tour.
Definitely. I think I'm not an overly trusting person. Maybe that's me being Scottish and dour and pessimistic and negative.
For you then, Richie.
But no, Ian's been fantastic. He's an integral part of me, or my success, no doubt. But he's integral in me being a better person and sort of growing a bit, because when you're younger, you think you know everything, and he sort of opened my eyes a little bit to what I needed to do, and he's always on hand to talk to. And because there's times when you're look, there's times when you're kind of, you dip down and you feel like you're in a bit of a trough, and you're like, how do I get out of this? And he's always the person that would call and be like, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? You know, he would throw a few ideas up, and he knew that I would take his ideas on board and come up with a plan. And he was just that person who's always there, take the phone call, give an honest opinion, was wanting to help me because he wanted me to do well, not because he was going to get anything out of it. He's like a good person and just wants you to do well. I mean, it sounds the most obvious thing in the world, but those people are sometimes really hard to come by, and that's why he's still my coach, basically, because I trust him with everything he does, and I trust him as a person as well, not just as a coach. I trust his opinion on stuff that's got nothing to do with golf, because he's generally a good person, and he would run rings around half the guys who are on YouTube coaching golf lessons, which I find quite amusing.
Yeah,
there's just so much crap out there, isn't there? If we're going to be really honest, there's just so many conflicting views, and I mean, you know, apart from yourself, Richie's obviously, you know, the resident expert. Bruce, you're kind of a bit of a student of the swing, aren't you? And kind of, you know, there's just so much out there on social media nowadays and I guess that kind of confuses a lot of young kids now. I suppose, you know, maybe 20 years ago that wasn't around, it certainly wasn't as prevalent, but now it kind of almost creates an unnecessary level of conflict in people's minds, I think, with the swing that you maybe wouldn't have had, you know, back then. And I don't know how that plays out in practice, but it definitely feels like, you know, it's something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very easy to, you know, like, just because you're a golfer, obviously you flick through Twitter or your Instagram, and something will come up, and you're like, oh, well, click on that. And you see a video, and you're like, I don't understand that. How's that working? And then maybe you're on the range the next day and you try it out, and it's like, if you don't catch yourself, suddenly you're 4 weeks down the road, and you're like,
yeah.
I've been trying a tip that someone from the internet has been on, you know. And Ian's always brilliant. He always tells me, like, the thing he uses, he's like, if you're in a car, he always says, and you want to go from if you want to go from Edinburgh to Aberdeen, he always say, how'd you get there? I said, well, go out the road, go on Queensferry, across Forth Road Bridge, straight up the motorway. Okay, so you know how to get to your destination. Yeah, because I know the path. I know where I want to go to. Okay, so like I say to golfers, okay, where are you at the moment? Like, what's your start point, which is obviously Edinburgh. Where do you want to get to? I want to get to Aberdeen. Okay, well, how do you know how to get there? Well, I want to do this, this, and this. Okay, well, you've got to stick with that path, because just like with the road, if you veer off the road, you'll suddenly end up in Stirling, you know.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I didn't want to get here. Oh, my swing's all over the place. And it's a simple thing to remember, but it's happened to me, and I've had to catch myself. Ian, a lot of the time, you know, says, like, we stick with the same stuff. We just fine tune it. There'll be stuff that'll crop up, but generally it's the same defaults. I'll go back to him after a 4-week break, and he'll say to me, what do you think? And I say, well, it's the weight, isn't it? The weight goes back onto the right side when I set up. Yep. What about the hands? The hands stay back as well. They should be further forward. Okay, do you turn very well? No, I'm not turning very well. And it's like the same things a lot of the time.
Will he travel on tour with you, or do you tend to sort of do most of your work sort of when you're at home?
I do the lion's share of work at home. I'm a big believer that, you know, being on the range or getting out, we've got that time, and when you're at a tournament, it's quite time sensitive. There's a lot of other stuff you have to do. He'll come on the road because he wants to see how I think at a tournament and how I maybe play at a tournament. So he'll walk round, and you know, the proof's in the pudding. You can practice as much as you want, but when he's walking around, you can see what I'm doing in a tournament and the way I'm thinking and shot selection, and we can discuss it afterwards. But generally, we spend most of the time away, and by that point, like say the Sunday before a tournament, and I'm flying the next day, I should be pretty much green light. I should know all the stuff on my swing, and I should just be playing to score.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be sort of my head muddled with a ton of swing thoughts, not sure what I'm doing, wondering which position my hands are in. It should all be locked in by then, and you're kind of ready to go.
Yeah, you're just trying to get yourself in that kind of. We did an episode recently with a kind of mental coach, Gio Valiante, and it's kind of describes it as flow state. There's a number of different uses for the term, but that's kind of where you want to play your golf, right? You want to do your stuff off the course and then kind of get there. You kind of just, it's about kind of getting yourself in the zone to perform. You're obviously massively diligent in terms of the way you approach it, and you kind of mentioned London Links there, and I think you came back, didn't you, a couple of years later and then won the Scottish Am at London Links, I think, unless I've dreamt that, and the Irish, and then that kind of led quite quickly into the Walker Cup. Just talk us through the Walker Cup. Like, how was that? I looked at the side you guys played against back in 2005. It's just, I mean, it's scary when you look at the names that are on there.
Yeah, I mean, well, we had a good team. They had a good team. I remember, I don't know, it was a difficult one for me because I felt that I made the team on merit, but I didn't think I was, if I was honest, valued by the selectors.
Really?
I didn't feel like, not that they didn't want me to play, that's not the right way, but I only played 2 foursomes matches. I didn't play a singles. I don't know if they rated me, if I was honest, even though my performances said I should have been in the team, which I was. I mean, it was a great week. Don't get me wrong; it was a brilliant week, and the team we had was exceptional. Some great characters in there. Probably the last.
Is that sort of Lloyd Saltman, Ollie Fisher, Rhys Davis?
Yeah, Rhys Davis.
Gary Wolstenholme and Nigel Edwards, who are kind of two, for want of a better term, career amateurs who've stayed amateurs their whole career. But it's interesting because the Walker Cup, I guess, it has two singles matches in there, isn't it? It's quite a very different structure from the professional equivalent. So it is it seems like quite a big oversight on the selectors' part that you didn't play a singles match.
It was. I mean, we had a great team. They had a really good team. We played. I remember it was me and Lloyd because we were the 2 Scottish guys in there, so we played together. Lloyd, obviously, record speaks for itself. Unbelievable talent, lovely guy. Got along really well. We played Brian Harman and Anthony Kim, which was. I mean, they were. Anthony Kim was he was serious player. Probably. I mean, talent-wise, just off the scale. Brian Harman, always thought Harman has been very underrated. He's done well as a pro, but really good lefty. A ton of guys at Putnam who played Ryder Cup at Celtic Manor. They're probably should have had in the team. JB Holmes. JB Holmes,
at that JB
time
Holmes
he was
in
hitting
there,
the
wasn't
ball
he?
just so far, it was frightening. I mean, this was 2007. I mean, he was that week in Chicago. It was warm, and guys were hitting it long, but he was hitting it 345.
Wow!
Wow!
I remember one of the holes, Chicago Golf Club, and I probably at the time didn't have the appreciation for the course. But there was, I think it was about 14 and 15. 14's about 361. And most guys were hitting driver lob wedge. So it was driver 50, 60 yards. He was hitting it down there just short of the bunker, as in I'll just pitch on the green. And then the next hole, there was a walkway. He was the only guy to hit it over the walkway. There's people walking over it at the time. And this ball's just flying past.
Wow.
He was just hitting it out of sight.
Was he still quite a slow player back then, or was he fairly brisk player as an amateur?
I would never say he's brisk. That's right. I think he might have regressed a little bit in his years on tour. He seems quite Deliberate is the word I would
Yeah.
use.
Diplomatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, you don't even see the distance. Like when you watch it on TV, the guy hits a long way, but he's got quite an abbreviated swing, hasn't he? You wouldn't, of the names on that list, and you said this guy was an absolute bomber in the Walker Cup. It
Yeah, I mean, it was.
You don't always think about it.
It was
like
just a brilliant week. There's lots of great things that I remember. I went on a boat ride all around Chicago. Went to some really nice restaurants. Remember staying in I still remember the bed. Like, got me and Reese were rooming together, and we walked in the room, and you had all like the bags, like the Ryder Cup bags, and you saw your name in the bag. You're like, oh, this is cool. And then the bed was like probably the comfiest bed I've ever slept on. The hotel that we're staying in town, just like the whole camaraderie. Like, I think everybody got along pretty well on the team, and we all wanted to win. We were all pretty. We would enjoy like a dogfight, we're all people who you wanted to have like on the team. You felt we're going to do something when the game was down, and it ended up coming down to one putt, and Nige hit like a great putt. I remember watching it from the side of the green. Honestly, thought it was in, and it just moved, just shaved by, and then that was the match. But it was a great week. I'll kind of never forget it. But just as good was playing for Scotland, playing like the home internationals. We won 3 home internationals in a row. We won. What else did we win? Playing the European, won the European under-21 Scottish team in the island in Dublin. That was like 2001. That was a brilliant week. Just so many like good memories of playing in teams, and that's the one regret I'd probably have with professional golf, that I've never played in like a Seve Trophy or anything like that. And I just love like that team environment.
Still plenty of time.
Yeah, I know it's on the bucket list.
I guess on that, back to Sterling quickly. How did you, in terms of managing golf there, were you able to sort of still play for Scotland and whilst everything else? Were you still doing that at the time, or?
So I sort of dovetailed between the two, and Ian was the national coach, and they just liaised, and it was a kind of, sometimes I'd play for university, but like the bigger picture was, listen, we had a great university team. You could send not our second team, but not far off our second team out, and they would win nearly every match. So do you want me to come and play for the university, or do you want me to go and represent Scotland? Because if you can put out the second team and still win, and have me go out and play for Scotland, and Scotland are going and winning maybe our home internationals or winning a tournament, then that's better for you.
Yeah,
to have that, and no doubt it's better for me, because again, it comes back, I'm playing against better players. I'm going to elevate my game, and it was what I enjoyed. It's that more like competitive nature. It's what I kind of what I most enjoy about the golf aspect.
Then moving on to 2006, which was the massive US amateur title. That was something. I think I was 2006. I think I was 16. And I remember when that came through. That was still, I would probably be into golf, taking it half seriously at least for 3 years at that time. And I remember that. Remember your win over there. I remember seeing it come through, and sort of, I think National Golfer was one of the big magazines at the time, and that sort of certainly for guys I was playing with really put the US amateur on the map for all the sort of UK fans, if you like. It was huge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was for me. I mean, it wasn't really a thing that international guys went and played.
Yeah.
But the previous few years, because of the way the funding works, people were allowed to go over there and qualify, and it was funded. And then they'd had a great rule, which was full credit to the USGA, is that if you made a Walker Cup team, you had a 2-year exemption into US Amateur, which obviously, again, you want to play against the best people. And we quickly realized that, like, if we all go over as a team, which we ended up doing, it was going to be the best way of of us doing well, because you're in again, it feels like although you're playing individual, you're in a team environment.
Rooting for each other.
Yeah, and just pulling for each other, having someone at night to go and have dinner with, and we were all put up by host families that were quite close to each other. So it was a really good atmosphere. Lloyd was playing, Ollie, Reese, Steve Tiley, I think Steve Luton was there, and then you had a couple of extras, like I think maybe Pablo was playing, maybe Alejandro, and then you had the guys that you'll know, age group, like Billy Horschel was there, Webb, Ricky, trying to think, those basically all the guys that were around about that age group were all playing. So it was quite cool because it was the best of the best, and
televised, isn't it?
Yeah. It's got there's like a blimp going overhead, and it's it's the full. They don't spare any expense, and it's played generally over a US Open, US PGA type golf course.
I think at the time Hazeltine was the longest
courses are
course
great
they'd ever held a US amateur on up till that moment. It was playing something like 7-4, 7-5, I think at the time. So was that as a test? It was something that you maybe weren't as used to coming from playing a lot of your competitive golf in Europe, or how did you approach it going into the week?
It was definitely, and this is where the sort of the tide turns for what I feel like the GB&I players, is that's what the American guys play on, not week in, week out, but that style of course. And of course, that style of course is what we play on tour. So it's an easier transition. Whereas, we had to adapt to it a little bit more. Fortunately, we had been out there and played a good course the week before and got a feel for sort of faster greens, thicker rough around the greens. And the setup was first class. There was although there was people, there was ropes at the side. So literally, if you hit it in the rough, it was dead. It was like, unless you got an exceptionally good lie, you're not getting to the green. So I was like, this is going to suit me. Like, I'm just going to hit it down the fairway and start gaining a ton of strokes.
Well, I read some crazy stat that from the final, maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit here because it'd be great to hear about some of the earlier rounds, but apparently in the final you missed like one fairway or something crazy over the 32 holes you played.
Yeah, the fairway I think I missed. The final I think I missed 2 fairways and 34 holes, and I think it was 2 greens or something like that.
Jeez.
And it's like, if you miss a hit,
it's ridiculous. Rough, how can you play against that?
Probably not getting to the green. Even till this day, probably with regards to what was on the line and pressure, it's some of the best golf of the ability that I had at the time that I played. So it was like I was maxing out. Like I just felt really good, and I was only ever down 3 times in the whole tournament, and every round seemed to build my confidence. And
wow, I
said to someone the other week, like after about a couple of matches, 4 rounds to go, I was like, you know what, someone's going to win this week, and you know what, there's a chance it's going to be me, and I might as well bring that attitude and that kind of mindset to each game. It's going to help me. And I just had a clear game plan. I was like, I'm just going to grind everybody down, because that was my stats in the final. But to be honest, apart from one other game where I played okay, the rest of the games I really played great, and I got a handle for the course early, knew exactly what I was doing off every tee, almost like playing my home course. It was like, right, I'm going to hit it down here, hit a little cut off there, and I just felt at home with it. And I was just grinding down people, and when you're playing match play, every time you're hitting a fairway or hitting a green, you're putting more pressure on them. So I just loved that.
Yeah, it's very attritional, isn't it? Particularly when you're playing, when you've got the kind of upper hand and you're not making any mistakes, it's almost impossible to play against.
Yeah.
Could you kind of feel yourself going through the week? Because there was a lot on the line at the time. You've got kind of Masters Open exemption, I think, or certainly US Open exemption, I'm guessing. were you kind of thinking about this stuff in the back of your mind, thinking like, wow, this is going to be like a career defining moment if I can get this through?
Yeah, I mean, the Masters is obvious when you think about it. It's like straight away, it's like Augusta, like just the chance to go and play Augusta would be incredible. When I did well, I think probably the coolest thing that happened, and when it sunk in, was I played great, loved the week, had a brilliant night out on the Sunday. Woke up Monday, my phone was dead because I'd just been using it so much, and nobody could contact me, so nobody knew where the hell I was. And then I got back, had to get on a flight back to London to go and play the St Andrews Trophy in Czech Republic. And then, so I got in, and there was a lot of media when I got back, and that was cool. I was like, oh, that's fair enough. But all the guys who'd been playing that week had headed to the Czech Republic. And like, I remember they were all there, and there was like there's Captain Colin Dalglish and a couple other players, like top players that were the best players in Europe and the best players in GB&I. And I had to get in a car, shattered. It was like 3-hour drive to this place in the dark. Didn't know where it was at. And I arrived at the hotel. It's like 11:30 at night. I'm like, oh, I just hope like reception's open. Like, I just want to get to bed, you know. So I'm like dragging my clubs out, and I'm tired at the best of times. So I'm dragging my clubs out. It's like, get in the door, get to reception. I was like, oh, great, right, perfect. I got the key. And I turn the corner, and there's like a bar around the corner. So I turn the corner, there's a corridor down there. So I turn, and all the boys are there, and they just start screaming, like, want to give a big hug.
Nice.
And that was like, for me, that was like, wow, like these are all guys I really respect and like really rate as golfers, and they were all like buzzing. And I was just like, God, I've done something here. Because if they're telling me that it's really good, then it's obviously like, for me, that was one of the coolest things. So that was a really nice thing to have, and that's probably why I missed that kind of team environment a little bit.
I was over in played Royal Aberdeen last July actually, and you've got obviously got a very nice painting there of yourself with the trophy.
So painting.
Do you not approve?
It's good. The skill of it's great. It just
too accurate. Is that the problem?
I've got face for radio and all that, you know. So.
And then obviously that's taken you through to 2007. So you're playing the Masters. So that get you into the Open and US Open as well?
Yeah, it got me in Open, US Open, which they were all brilliant. Like, that was just such a learning curve again. I played really good that year. I didn't really do anything in any of those tournaments, which really disappointed me because like my preparation and everything was really good.
I think you're putting yourself down there. There is a big achievement in the practice round at Augusta. Who did you take money off?
Yeah, I ended up taking money off Nicholson. Little
defending champ as well that year.
Yeah, nine holes on the back nine there. That was really cool. You know, I've been fortunate to win some tournaments, but that's a day that I won't forget. You know, like when I'm 70 and grey and old, I'll remember that. That was a brilliant day.
Really? Just
get to pick his brains, and nobody else was around, and we had breakfast in the champions locker room. He just invited me. One of the members said, "This is Richie." This was on Saturday. This is Richie Ramsay. He won the US Amateur. He'll be playing with you on Thursday because it's tradition that the US Amateur plays with the defending champion. And he's like, "Oh well, are you playing tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go out and practice." He's like, "Well, if you want to have breakfast, we're having breakfast in the champions locker room at like 8:00. So like, wow. Obviously my face like lights up. He's like, "Do you want to come?" I'm like, yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, you have breakfast, you're sitting there and you're like, what is going on here? This is the most surreal thing. And you're just walking around in a daze because like, it's just crazy.
It's absurd, isn't it? And you're up in the Crow's Nest as well that week, are you?
I stayed a couple of nights up there, and then I stayed at a hotel the rest of the time because it's quite tight up there. Like
A lot of people seem to say that.
yeah, it's like it's kind of like if you go up into, if you have an attic stairs, it's kind of like that. You go up these wee stairs, really narrow. Only one person can really go up the stairs. And then you come out and there's a room, very small, like sort of, I wouldn't say it's not a living room. It's basically just a big room that has partitions for like 5 beds. So there's like a partition and the bed behind it, and there's a bathroom at the end. And because it's in the top of the clubhouse, all the heat goes up. So it's hot up there. So it's a cool place to stay, but it's not like ideal preparation, because if one of the guys snores, then
You're in trouble.
you're goosed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an amazing week just to play in a marquee group, which was cool, because you hear like the roars when the putts go in and stuff like that. And play the US Open was brilliant. The Open at Carnoustie, I didn't play that great. I was to and fro back from America and Britain, and I had a small illness that wouldn't disappear, and I didn't really realize I had it. So I was getting a lot of high temperatures and it was really struggling. My fitness, like my health, wasn't great, and then I eventually had a small operation at the end of the year that fixed it. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and also you're trying to learn and understand how the whole kind of world of professional golf works, and trying to feel like you fit in.
Yeah.
And particularly in America, that was a difficult thing. I can completely understand why guys struggle out there, because in Europe you're in same planes, buses to the course, staying in the same hotels, or you're staying in apartments that are close to them, and you see everybody. Whereas America, it's very separate. It's very like you sit down at a table and like there's not much. It doesn't seem like there was much chat going on. So
it's a bit more, maybe a bit more distant out there, isn't it? And a bit more
trying to understand that whole world was a little bit difficult, but it was a huge learning curve. And it definitely helped me when I turned pro after the Open in 2007.
So Richie, you talked about kind of playing in some of those marquee pairings and the kind of, some of the people who are kind of most revered on tour. What did it feel like, a really big steep learning curve? What were the big things you kind of took out of those matches? I guess you kind of saw things in the players that you'd never seen before when you're playing with people like Phil and stuff.
I think there was probably 3 things. The first, the big thing, and probably the overriding thing that I saw in the top players was like they don't hit the ball down the middle of the fairway and hit the ball at the flag all the time. They're human, and they all make mistakes. So they're it's not a game of sort of bit of Bob Rotel here, but they're not perfect. And that kind of aura or that kind of idea is easy to go with, but when you watch them, it doesn't always work out like that. But the next thing that they would say is, because of that, when they weren't perfect, they always tended to recover well. So when they made a mistake, whether they missed the green, they would get it up and down, or whether they hit it in the trees, they would use a smart play, knock it out, and hit a wedge close and hold the putt and make par. And although they didn't hit perfect shots, their score never sort of seemed to get away from them. Particularly, Mickelson that week was just unbelievable. He hit 2 shots that I think there'll be maybe 3 people in the world that could hit them.
Really?
And it was just like, he hit a flop shot on number 7. Now, number 7, you've watched the Masters, the pin on the right-hand side, it's like a bowl.
Yeah.
But they stick a pin long right on 7. So you imagine if the front bit's like a bowl, there's kind of like a tier. And he's hit it long left. Now, he's got to come over a bunker from a downslope to a green that runs away from him. And if he goes a bit too far, it goes down the bowl and goes down to the very front of the green. And I was just like, and that was the year that Zach Johnson won. So the greens were exceptionally hard that year. And I'm standing there and he's sort of walking around and I'm thinking, wonder what he's going to do here. I'm thinking, chip it, like honestly, chip it out sideways or putt it sideways and give yourself like 25 feet. Because that way it's like, you give yourself a putt and you're probably going to make 5. You put yourself in a bad position. But no, he takes out the lob wedge or the 64. And I'm standing halfway between him and the hole. And I'm like, what is he doing here? Is he taking this on? There's no way he can stop this. And I'm thinking, if he doesn't make this, like there's a high number here, and he hits this shot, and because I'm standing side on, I'm like, mouth just drops as he hits this, like full swing, and it glances the fringe over the bunker and runs down to like 4 feet, and I'm like, and like everybody else is just going wild, just like applauding, and I'm almost like putting my putter down, clapping myself. And I'm like, and I could see it maybe if you're mucking around with your mates, you know, like you used to do, like in the short game, mate, and you're like, oh, watch this, I'm going to hit this, and you know, you thin 7 into the car park and 4 into the bush, and you hit 1, and it goes down, you know.
Yeah.
But this is like in a tournament in the Masters, and he knocks it in for 4, and I'm like, this is a different level.
Yeah.
And then he hit 1. You know, the whole 15. So his over the water. His philosophy was, he said to me that for a left-hander, the worst place you can leave it is laying up because it's into the green, the ball's below your feet, and it's a really tough green to pitch into. So his idea is like, even if I can get it over the back of the green, doesn't matter if I can hold the green, as long as I can get it over the water, and even if it goes over the green, I'll get it up and down. So I'm like, okay. So the pin's on the very, very left-hand side, and that's the depth of that left-hand side.
It's about a yard deep, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah. It's not much at all. So he's hit the second shot over the water, but he's hit it long right of the green, and I'm like, oh yeah, right. We'll see what happens here. Because I'm like, if he hits it a little bit long, he's in the water. If he leaves it short, he could have a very difficult chip again. And he's hit this shot, and it's just, bearing in mind it's into the green, straight up. Again, lands on the downslope, runs down to about 7 feet, and he makes it. And I'm like, I just don't see that. Like, just, you know, there's some shots where you're like, oh yeah, I could probably hit that. Oh, I could do that. And you're like, I was like, no, I can't do that.
And you wouldn't even try, would you? Particularly in that kind of environment with the penalties you've got. You know, you've only got to be slightly off course. You've only got to, you know, misjudge pace around there, and you pay the price right. And he's taken this on at high tariff shots, and he's got the game to back it up. And it's just incredible to watch.
He's a one-off.
Yeah,
I assume he's probably tipped the visor and given you a cheeky little smirk.
It was you know, the thumb came out. The visor and the thumb. So that was two really cool like spots where I was just like, wow, like I can see now he can afford to be a little bit wayward when you've got a short game like that. Nothing's impossible. So that was 2 sort of cool moments from that year. And then them not playing well. Recovering from mistakes, and probably thirdly was they all have like an air of they all have a clear idea of what they want to do. You know, they're like, I'm going to hit it here. I'm going to I'm going to hit a fade off this tree, or they all look like they know what they're going to do. They, you know, you never all the top players never hit a shot and go, oh, I knew I shouldn't have hit it over there. You know, they're all very committed to what they're doing and have a clear idea of where they want to go, what flight it is, you know, what kind of spin they want to put on it, and that kind of showed in the way their mannerisms, the way they would walk around the golf course. They all walked with a bit of a swagger, and that's just the mental side. They know they're good, and they wanted to show it.
Finishing off those majors, you're then turning pro. Was it straight to Q School?
So I took a little bit of heat because I turned pro after the Open. I didn't play the Walker Cup. It counted down. But that was a calculation on my part, because I knew that if I turned pro, I could get some Challenge Tour invites, and also if I waited, all the other guys would want invites when they came off the Walker Cup. And they had a stellar Walker Cup team as well, and you know, Rory was playing in that, and Lloyd, and they were going to get invites ahead of me. I knew that. So my route, and I felt like I'd plateaued a bit. I'd learned enough. Like, let's get to the next step. Was to turn pro and play on the Challenge Tour, and that was a brilliant breeding ground for me. Learned a lot really quickly and played well. Suffered a little bit of not mental fatigue, a little bit of struggles with the whole aspect of playing for your card, and I didn't have a sponsor at the time, and one of my mentors stepped in and helped me out, and that really changed the game for me. And then I was able to get top 10s, which meant that I got into the week after. I think I only had to use up 4 invites, and I maybe had 4 top 10s, so I had 8, and then I got into the final event at the end of the year, which was San Domenico, and I finished 40th on the Challenge Tour. That gave me a card on the Challenge Tour, and it gave me status, which the 2 things you need as a professional golfer are money and status. If you don't have one, the other one doesn't matter. And it gave me some money in the pocket to pay for next year, and it gave me the status that I could build a schedule.
And you've kept status right through, haven't you? That's kind of, I think I'm right there. You kind of, you know, your career's you've clearly had good years and you've had more challenging years. How's that kind of ebbed and flowed? Because you've been kind of on the tour for quite a long time, haven't you? You've played, you know, high level for a hell of a long time now, and you must have had, like you would in any kind of life or any kind of job, you've had good years and bad years. So had you kind of take those, you know, I look at some of the performances, you look at things like, you know, world rankings and so on and so forth. You know, what have been like the real kind of big defining moments where you've had kind of, you know, huge breakthroughs and then you've kind of had to sort of handle maybe a few setbacks?
You know, winning early was a big thing. I think the year I got my card, I played in the Dunhill, and I was like maybe one of the last people in, and I ended up finishing 3rd, and that secured my card with like 2 events to go. So that was a huge thing for me. And then because of that, I you know, like literally a month and a half later, maybe 2 months later, I won the SE Open, and that was a breakthrough based on that Dunhill performance, really. And then I had a lot of years where I played well. 2012, I won in 2012, but 2 chances to win again. One, Peter Hansen I was chasing Peter Hansen down, and I thought I had him for a playoff, and he held a 30-footer on the last to eagle the last, when I had the eagle putt from about 20 foot inside. Like, all day long, I was like, when I got to that 20-footer, I was like, I'm going to hold this, make eagle, he's going to make birdie, and I'm going to play in a playoff, and I'm going to win. I've never probably had a putt where I've been as sure that I'm going to hold it in my life. I just never had the opportunity because he knocked it in before me. So it was all credit to him. And then I was beaten somewhere else, Holland, somewhere just after that. So that was the time where I felt like I kind of belonged a lot more, and that was 2 or 3 years after I made the leap. So I kind of felt like played enough tournaments and competed that I wasn't just making up the numbers. I was there to compete and to win, which felt good because I'm competitive and I don't like losing.
Yeah, I mean, you're going out there to win, aren't you? Everyone's going out there every week to win. When you finished 2012,
Yeah.
I think 57th in the world. If I remember, when we were looking, doing a bit of research, were you kind of close at any stage there to thinking, do you know what, I'd move the game stateside and start to compete over there? Was that a consideration?
So at the end of that year, I had an opportunity to go to Cusco in America. Because I had the exemption from Omega European Masters, it meant that I could go to Cusco. If it didn't work out, I'd come back and play in Europe. But at the end of the year, I think there was about 4 tournaments, and it was something like Singapore, China, Hong Kong, and something else. It was maybe Dubai, and I was going to be in all the tournaments, and there were huge world ranking points in all the tournaments, and there was American Cusco. Now, in order to go to Cusco in America, I would have had to miss one tournament in Europe, play Cusco, fly to Singapore, play Singapore, Hong Kong, and fly all the way back and play in final Cusco in LA, and then fly back to Dubai and play in Dubai. But if I had played well in those 4 events on the European Tour, I would crack the top 50, and it would give me all the WGCs, all the majors the next year. So my viewpoint on it was, let's not split this up. Let's not do 50% on European Tour and 50% in Cusco. With all that flying, I'm going to be fatigued. Let's just go 100% out on the European Tour events and give it a shot and try and crack that top 50. Because the top 50 for golfers is like the holy grail.
Yeah, once you're in there, that really unlocks it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
that's such a difficult decision, isn't it? Like hearing you talk that through, that's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Eventually, I said, right, let's play the European ones. If I play good in 2 out of 4 of those, I'll gain enough world ranking points I can make the leap. And I just didn't play well enough. And then shortly after that, the next year, I was playing in something, and then the following year they closed Cusco, and you had to go and play web.com, and then the exemption was running out. So even if I went and played, I had to really keep my card in Europe, because otherwise, you can go to Cusco, but if you don't have an exemption, you don't keep your card, then you've got nowhere to
come
play.
Back, you got no seat anywhere, and that's a big problem.
Yeah. And to be honest, I felt comfortable in Europe. I knew like all the tournaments, I knew the travel. I could fly back home and see all my friends. I could see my family. As great as America is, playing in front of huge crowds and like obviously big purses, great competition. Like there's other things outside golf that are bigger, and like seeing your friends and being around people that you've known. A lot of people that I met at university, that was just as important to me.
Definitely seems like there's a lot of camaraderie on the European Tour and much more of a family feel than stateside, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. I think, sort of split up into countries, but I think people see each other and there's a lot more socializing on a European Tour than probably in America. It seems like a better atmosphere out there. It's pretty friendly on a European Tour.
Have you got a couple of best mates who spend most of your time with out there?
Not really. I mean, to be honest, 2 guys that I had the best time with on tour were Rhys Davis and Gareth Maben. Both of them don't play on tour anymore, unfortunately. I used to share a lot with them. I mean, now a lot of time, it sounds funny, but I'm a bit older now. I get my head down quite early. I would say I'm not I like to go on a Sunday night and maybe have a couple of drinks, but
Yeah.
I don't roll in at 2 or 3 in the morning. Those days.
You're not starting Thursdays with a hangover on tour then at the moment. That's kind of, those days are gone.
No, those days have passed. So
there can't be many players still taking the Wednesday night on.
It depends where you are on tour, but obviously Sunday night's quite a good night. I would enjoy going out and having a bit of a laugh. Nice meal, couple of glasses of wine. Still get my 9 hours, because if you ask anybody on tour, the one thing they'll tell you is that, oh, Richie, sleeps anywhere. Like, find me sleeping anywhere. I'm always napping in different places, like just in the locker rooms. Like, who's that? Oh, it's Richie. He's asleep over there snoring.
So, one of the, kind of talk to me about Birkdale 2017, Richie. That was kind of, you were right up there, weren't you? I think you were going out, it was like fourth or fifth pairing back. You finished a million miles off. And that was quite an interesting final day in the Open. Like, there must have, knowing Birkdale and how the whole route and everything around that back nine, was there much of a kind of, talk me through that whole sort of last day feeling?
Yeah, I was just like buzzing, because I played Birkdale British boys in, like, when I was about 15, maybe, I think it was. And I loved the golf course because it kind of has a little bit of a feel of Royal Aberdeen, particularly that back nine. It's just a really cool week. Like, I played good, loved the golf course. There's a ton of people out there. Like when you have an event, like when we had one at Hillside British Masters, that people just turn out there. They love their golf down that kind of side of the country. Loved the week. Just the main thing was that I enjoyed the golf course. I kind of understood the golf course and really enjoyed it, and that helped me play better. But it's the Open, it's like the one you see it when you grow up. You get to see it all always on TV. The only regret I had about that week is I didn't believe in myself a little bit more. I think if I believed in myself, I could have made a little bit of a run. But I played really well, and it's probably the most fun I've had in the golf course.
Really?
I was just like, almost to the point where you're like, on the weekend, you're like, okay, if I don't play well, I don't play well, but I'm just going to really enjoy this. Like, this is not going to happen all the time. And if golf stops tomorrow, I've got to, like, enjoy this present feeling. Like, don't worry about what's maybe going to happen or what's not going to happen. Just go out there and enjoy each shot, and enjoy the fact that, like, when you walk off the green, it's packed. The grandstands are packed because it's the end of the day. And always remember walking up that last hole, hit a beautiful shot in, and, like, the stands are packed. You've got the classic yellow leaderboard, the beautiful retro style clubhouse in the background, and it was just really cool, such a cool week. And like I say, most fun I've had in the golf course.
I remember seeing you coming through. I think I was there on the Thursday or Friday, and I think I was hanging around some spot anyway. But maybe saying, I have to say, from memory, I don't know why this stands out, but it does. I think that year you had an orange and blue Stitch tour bag, which I have to say, probably it was up there one of the best tour bags, certainly on tour that year.
Yeah, the orange and blue one that year. Yeah, Stitch do a great job. I'm not with them anymore, but they make some fantastic products, and their tour bags were always, you never had to look. You go in the bag store, you're like, oh god, if you got a Callaway or Titleist bag, you'd be in there for half an hour. I was like, I would always go, it's the orange one, mate, over there. I can see it from here. Yeah, that was a cool week. Yeah.
If you never thought you'd find the fan who remembered exactly what bag you had at the 2017 Open, you've got Cal right here. I mean, borderline stalker behavior.
Stash, absolute stash knows.
Crazy.
Pick up the smaller details.
Yeah.
So you had
things in life.
Exactly.
You had quite. I guess it was a bit of a close run call, wasn't it? In 2018, kind of closing out that season. I did a bit of reading. Obviously, that was I think it was a difficult year. I think you had some injury stuff, didn't you? And holding onto your card, it came almost pretty much right down to the wire at Valderrama.
Yeah, that was.
Was that the hardest part of your professional career, do you say?
Yeah, probably the most nervous I've ever been in a golf course, but probably the most nervous, but maybe the biggest challenge I've ever had because there was a lot going on that week. So obviously the golf course, like first and foremost, I love the golf course, but it's bloody hard. Ask
Yeah.
anybody the hardest golf course in the tour.
Brutal.
They're probably going to say
Yeah,
Valderrama.
I've heard people like some of the pros just give it a wide berth purely for its difficulty.
Yeah, they just don't like it because it's too hard. But I love it. Like I love like the tunnel fairways. I'm like, what's this hit driver? Like, you've got to hit it straight. You have to hit it straight, or you're like, oh no, I'm going to be under a cork tree, or that kind of idea. Lots of delays that week. It went to the Monday. My final round was split up, so it wasn't like you go in the final round, you play, you're done, that's it. It was like we played 12 holes, and it got called, and then we went back and had to play 6 holes to finish on the Monday. So it's like
That's brutal.
you're not sleeping.
Because that was a key.
You're not sleeping one final round night. You're sleeping over 2 final round nights. So it's like the stress just ramps up even more. And I just remember the last hole. I remember not hyperventilating, but my heart was racing, like properly. Almost feel like you're on, like feel like you've had 4 espressos. And I'm like, when I get like that, I always right in through your nose, out through your mouth, like get the adrenaline out. Don't spike. Just like try and keep it as level as you can. It's like the hardest private hole on tour. So you're basically thinking like without sort of, can you swear on this? Or
you can
Yeah,
swear.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
encouraged.
You're like
actually,
standing,
Richie.
you're like,
Yeah, it's encouraged.
fuck, like I'm gonna have to have a good t-shirt here. I'm not getting to the green. But fortunately, my driver's always been my strength. So I'm like, I'm gonna hit it over this tree and just smash it hard straight over that tree. And I've like just gunned it literally over the branch that I picked out. But until you get down there at Valderrama, you never know it's in the fairway. So you're walking up and you're like turning the corner because it could have it could have got over that branch, but it could have clipped another branch on the other side and ricocheted off behind the tree. You just never know. So I get up there and I'm like, God, I was like, where's my ball? And you get over the cret and you see it. I was like, oh, God, I'm in the fairway. And it's a back left pin. And I'm like, right, hit it middle. Don't go. You can't go really long there. So I'm like, hit an 8-iron. So I hit an 8-iron down there. Like, just saw the shot, knew where I wanted to start it, drift it in off the wind off the right. And I hit this perfectly. I'm just like, oh, keep coming. Because if it just catches the slope, it goes all the way down to the hole. And it lands in the middle of the green, probably about 20 foot exactly pin high. I'm like, oh, this is perfect, right? Just roll this down. So the 2 other playing partners putt. And I get there, and like Valderrama greens are fast, like properly fast. And I'm like, right, Rich, the last drop, get it in the hole, roll it, hit it slowly. And for the life of me, fucking hell, what went through my head? I hit it about 4 feet by, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And I see the media manager come over, so I'm like, oh my God, this means something. So I'm like, right, calm down.
Oh, do you know? When the media guy, you can see him, you know that you've got
I know
something
it's
that's going to go either way.
it's worth something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's like, if I'm up in my head, I'm thinking, if I make this, I'm good, because I'm quite high up the leaderboard. But I'm thinking, if I don't,
Card's gone.
it drops you down, and suddenly, like, the money becomes significantly less because you might be in a tie of like 8 spots, and then that could be your card. And I'm walking around surveying the putt, and I think to myself, did I have this putt like 4 years ago when I put maybe more than that, Andalusian Masters? And I'm thinking, it doesn't break. Last time I was here, like 4 years ago, I'm pretty sure this putt doesn't break. And I'm like, there's a hill up there, there's a valley on the right. I'm like, it's got to break left to right, it's got to break left to right. So I'm like, it's like going back and forth. I'm like, right, just think, right, whatever you're doing, pick a line, commit to it. So I'm like, screw it. Hit it inside left. If it breaks a little, if you've got enough pace on it, it won't come out. And I got over it and wrapped it in, and it's probably the best like feeling mentally, because I've basically been all over the place for like 30 seconds, and I just got together being like, pick a line, commit to it. If it doesn't go in, you can't do anything about it. Just put a good stroke on it. Make sure you commit to the shot. Knocked it in, walked in, and everybody was like, sort of like, think you're all right. I was like, I'm not all right until someone gives me a piece of paper and tells me I've got my card for next year. That was the biggest challenge and the toughest. That was the toughest point of my career, but the most satisfying.
It's mad hearing you talk it through, though, where you're saying, like, it's the most pressure I've played under, and thinking, you talk about, the free and easiness of playing kind of 17 Birkdale. When you're kind of right up there, you've got the USAM where, you're going to break major historical records. And then kind of that one, it's like, that's the one that actually really got the fear. I think it's quite interesting. I want to kind of pick your brains a little bit. We kind of asked most of our guests about the kind of distance report, stuff to do with the course setup. I know when the Alfred Dunhill Links was played last year, obviously there was a bit of a kind of hoo-ha around, I think it's Victor Perez won, didn't he, with 22 under at the end. And, are some of the European Tour events, are the courses set up easier, for want of a better term, than maybe some of the stuff out in the PGA? And I guess I'm kind of interested to get your take on where the game goes with big hitters, people like kind of Cameron Champ coming in that are going to be, those numbers could be the new norm in the next sort of 5-10 years. And, I don't think it's a very easy one to solve, but I'm really kind of interested to get your take as kind of a professional on, courses, setup, and how you kind of tackle that for the professional player.
The one thing I would say is that Dunhill is a very tough one, because you've got amateurs and professionals playing, so it's a difficult one to find the happy medium, because you've got to make it tough because it's a professional event, but at the same time you've got amateurs, so you need to make it playable. And the old course is ideal for that, wide fairways, and most guys pick up when they get in trouble, but it was soft that year and not much wind, so it made it very scoreable. In general, I would say the setup in the European Tour is good. In America, they have a lot more money, and money relates to, you can get the water and feed the grass, make sure it's all uniformed. And that happens in places we play like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, because they have the money to do it. But we don't have that money on every European Tour event. So I would say the setup and the standard of golf courses is still the same. It's probably a little bit tougher in America, that's fair. But the distance thing is, in my mind, it's got out of hand, if I was honest. I'm one of these people who I lived through the change. So when I was a kid, I would have an actual wood. And when I grew up, when I was 16, I remember spending all my 16th birthday money on Callaway Big Bertha. And I was like, well, this is the biggest thing ever. Like, can't miss the ball. Like, golf's going to be so much easier now. And then I grew up, and then obviously drivers grew with that. And it's got to the point where it's far, far easier to hit a driver straighter. Now, for the amateur golfer, that's great, because they need as much help as they can get. The problem is, for me, is that speed of the way you swing it has become such a dominant factor, because speed relates into your distance, and that the technology has allowed people to have that speed. So a lot of the guys you see now who are coming through, when they were 8 years old, they had a big driver which had good equipment, so they would just swing it as fast as they can, because they knew even if they missed it, the ball would still be fine. When I was a little kid, if you swung it hard and you missed it, the dispersion on that thing was huge. So what I feel is that it's okay hitting the ball far. I'm not opposed to that. The problem is that you can hit it far, but your off-center hits, the dispersion is very, very minimal these days. And there's two things about that's an issue. Is that one is that people just wail on the driver because they know that there's not a huge miss in it. And also it gives them far more confidence. So if you're a guy who has a small-headed driver, when I was growing up, you would hit that odd shot where you're like, oh, I missed that completely, and with a Balata ball particularly, it would spin out and you'd have a big miss. And obviously that gets in your head. So you're standing there and some shots going on. Remember that, hit that one in 7, missed it, straight into the hay, right? You don't have that. You don't have those sort of demons in your head anymore, because you can, as long as you commit to it and stand up and swing pretty fast, as long as you hit pretty much just round about the center of the club will do the work for you, and it'll go pretty straight, and you won't lose much distance. So when I stand there and there's a bunker that I've got to fly, it's not the fact that I've got to hit it off the middle, it's the fact that I've got to get the speed, because I know that the club technology will do the work for me. Whereas if I stand there with even a small metal like they had in the early 90s, if you just miss it a bit and a ball and it spins up, that's going straight in that bunker. So I believe that the skill element has come out of it. I don't know how to solve it. The other thing that it's done is that it's put a huge amount of pressure on golf courses to change, and a lot of the time not for the better. Golf courses, most member courses, don't really have the money to be going out and spending or buying more land or building new tees or putting in a ton of bunkers or changing it just for the professionals. We are a small percentage of people who play golf. It's your everyday member that needs to get the enjoyment out of the golf course.
And by extending them, the designs become less relevant, don't they, as well? So you kind of you put the tees back by 60, 70, 80 yards, then all of a sudden the whole strategy and the way the hole was designed also becomes almost defunct with that. So I think it's a tricky one. But you would say, and that's kind of commonplace around tour, people accept that the distance stuff now, where it's got to, we can't continue to push that forward in the same rate, not without kind of making massive kind of impacts now on particularly the tour level game, because the courses just can't contain the distance, can they?
Yeah, there's got to be a line in the sand, and I firmly believe that line should have been drawn. I wasn't on tour, so I was only 10, 12 at the time, but I was looking at a picture of Faldo. It was a video of Faldo a day on European Tour Twitter feed, and it was him playing the Irish Open, Pringle sweater, with the driver. Now, he was hitting his driver there. If you watch it, if you go to the Twitter feed and watch it, the driver looks like a rescue club now.
Yeah.
It's like it's probably smaller than a 5-wood. Now, building his swing so it's the most skillful swing, and he can repetitively hit it out of the middle because he knows that's where he gets the maximum. Now, if you want to tell someone, right, all you need to do is swing it fast, the technology will do it for yourself, you're almost, I would say, taking the skill element out of it. Although it benefits the amateur players, which I'm all for, I don't think it helps the professionals, and I don't think simply distance should be as an important factor as it is in helping guys be successful. The guys I look at are really like Jim Furyk, Matt Kuchar, those types of guys. I've got to look at those and be the best version of that possible, because I know I don't have that kind of bomb and gouge game. I've got to sort of finesse it a little bit more around there. And there's guys out there that do that, but they're, over the last 10 to 15 years, they're slowly falling out of the game. It's the young guys who really send it and can overpower courses.
Yeah, and I suppose it starts to maybe think about kind of schedule then, doesn't it? And you start to think, well, which course is actually set up for me? You know, which ones are the ones that I'm going to kind of give it a miss, just like in the States, some of the guys will kind of alter their schedule. I feel like we've taken up kind of far too much of your time, Richie, but we've really enjoyed kind of having you on. Are you preparing to get back out there, or are you already kind of getting sort of dusting the cobwebs off and kind of getting out there and swinging a few now?
Yeah, I'm out in the back garden, hitting off a bit of AstroTurf, making swings and doing chips, and started off doing a lot of workouts, and I injured my hip a little bit and took a few weeks off, and then getting back into the workout. So I'm kind of ready to get going. Just the idea, I just want to be. It sounds funny. It's just like when I was a lot of time between 13 and 18, I would just get dropped off the practice range, bucket of balls to myself, bags, stay there, hit balls for 2-3 hours. Just love that. That's what I'm most looking forward to. Just being out there, grinding, trying to get better every day, going and playing a few holes, working on my game. That's all I want to kind of do, really.
Sounds like the tour's possibly getting back together around July at some point. I know they're looking to do sounds like they're doing a few tournaments in the UK, and I know obviously yourself, you got links to Renaissance Club, and obviously the Scottish Open's postponed at the moment. Is there any news on that? Is that likely to be rescheduled for this year, or will they carry on this year?
I'm not really too sure. I do know that it's logical thinking to look at, you have British Masters, Scottish Open, Dunhill, and BMW. One country, one set of regulations, have guys close around and play a lot of tournaments close back to back. That seems like a logical thing that they could do, but I haven't heard anything on Renaissance. I still think we're a long way away from getting back out there. I don't see it happening really till a good part of the summer, like end part of the summer.
They're touting mid-July, aren't they? But that feels
yeah.
Very
I mean,
ambitious.
the Open was obviously cancelled. So, and that's pretty much mid-July. Yeah. So I can't see it being at that close. And it's all dependent on, a second spike. If a second spike comes, a big thing in my mind, this is the way I would think about it, is the PGA Tour. Like, if the PGA Tour return and they're able to do that and manage it and it be successful, then it helps us. However, if they return and there's issues that are brought up with that, and there are issues that are pretty much health and safety issues that are difficult to get around, as in testing people, or if someone contracts COVID and they've been in player dining or on a bus, and then you've got to trace people. If something like that happens, which, let's be honest, that's a possibility, then it sets back our timeline and how they would look at tournaments. So it's it's unprecedented. I don't envy their job. It's really, really difficult to come up with a tournament, because when you play golf with your mates, it's like, okay, guys, turn up 5 minutes before, get in the first tee, nobody touches each other's clubs, don't touch a fuzz stick, stay 2 meters away from each other, and then jump back in the cars, off we go. But with a tournament, it's like, okay, flights, hotels. Okay, how are you going to get the guys to the golf course? Right, are you going to use a bus, or how are you going to do that? Okay, where are they all going to eat? Do they have to eat together, or do they have to have separate? Okay, you got caddies. Where are the caddies going to stay? Okay, what's the rules for the caddies? Then it suddenly becomes
it's crazy,
really, really difficult. And it's not an impossible puzzle, but it's not far off it.
It takes a lot of unpicking, doesn't it? Well, I mean, we're keeping our fingers crossed for you guys up there, just to be able to get out there and play soon. We've enjoyed kind of playing, and I'm pretty sure Royal Aberdeen and Renaissance and what's going to be firm, fast, and good fun when it does happen. And we hope the rest of the season goes well for you when that eventually returns, and we'll be watching with great interest, Richie. But just a massive thank you for coming on the pod this week, and it's been a pleasure chatting to you.
No, it's no worries. Thanks very much for having us. It was good to chat for a few things. I probably I learn as much just talking through it about things that I've gone through and things that I've learned. So it's good for me to go back there and realise, I'm proud of what I've done, but hopefully there's more in the tank.
Perfect.
Good man.
Appreciate your time. Thanks, Richie.
Good luck.
Cheers, boys.
Speak soon. Cheers.
This.